Greetings, my lovelies. You have chosen to sit through another episode of Review Memoirs. Clearly, you have way too much time on your hands, but I am eternally grateful. We're going to be talking about Angry Joe today, or more specifically, my review of Angry Joe and the controversy that surrounded that. Now, the first time I saw Angry Joe was during the That Got the Glasses Year 1 brawl, and he was pretty amusing in that, but like everybody else, there wasn't a whole lot for him to do. And then around the time Kikassia came out, I decided to give some of his videos a look, primarily his review of Red Dead Redemption. And I really liked that one. And the other reviews I watched, I liked too, but the Red Dead Redemption one, just everything about that review clicked with me, and I was so inspired by it that I actually went out and bought the video game, and I still play it to this day. So obviously that worked out really well. But I was currently just starting Season 2 of Critiquing the Critics, and I think I had to watch Mars Girl's reviews, so I had to put off watching his stuff, and then Season 2 eventually ended like a year later, and I announced the Season 3 race, where the first 5 people to comment with their requests, those will automatically be added into the lineup for Season 3. And Angry Joe wasn't chosen there. The only That Got the Glasses reviewer who was chosen, I believe, was Film Brain, and then Apollo Z Hack was chosen too, but he wasn't with That Got the Glasses at that time. The only reason Angry Joe, in fact, the other That Got the Glasses reviewers like Phalis and Spoonie, the only reason that they made it into the list was just through random number selection. I always obsess over random numbers. I don't like to know who I'm going to review, so that's why I always have to have some sort of random number selection there. So, with Angry Joe, I decided I'd go ahead and place him at the start of the season, and then Spoonie would be the finale, because I like to start and end with a relatively popular reviewer. And so I watched all of Angry Joe's reviews. Back then I could still do that. These days I cannot. And I really enjoyed them, and I started putting this review together, and I felt that I needed to step up my game, so I was going to be a lot more ambitious with this video. And so I made a new opening, which I really enjoyed doing. The song I used is from Bay of Blood, which is a giallo slasher. It's a real fun movie, and it's probably the movie that inspired Friday the 13th, and it definitely inspired the first Friday the 13th sequel. In fact, I think the sequel actually blatantly ripped off Bay of Blood in some parts. And it's directed by Mario Bava, one of my favorite directors, who I did a Creepy Bald Guy review on with Shock, which was my least favorite movie of his. And but it has a great score, and I just love that tune. It's really catchy, but it's kind of weird, and I think that's the type of theme song I like to go for. Same with that porno Holocaust theme. It just is a really interesting tune that just sticks with you, but it's at the same time just kind of bizarre. So I put that together. A few things I wanted to add to these reviews would I'd elaborate more on the Triforce, where I'd zoom in on a certain part of it and then write in notes. I think the reason I did that at the time was that my audio was so murky and crappy that I felt like I needed to clarify certain points. So if you couldn't understand what I was saying, if you could at least read them and then get the gist of what I meant. I no longer do that because it took too much time. I kept making mistakes with it, and it just became unnecessary once I got a better mic and once I found a better way to do these videos. So, but at the time it was a big step, and it took forever, and my spelling really sucked at times. It wasn't that the spelling sucked, I just made so many different typos, like critiquing, I forgot one of the I's. But at the time, that was, like I said, a big step for me. And then I also implemented the red flag system, which was just designed to really cover my ass. The thing with the red flag system is I wanted a system where I could point out certain complaints, but those complaints wouldn't necessarily be criticisms. So, for example, the big one I introduced was no cheese with my corn, which is pretty much just indicating that Joe was very, very hammy. And a lot of people don't like that, but at the same time, I don't really think that's a fair criticism to complain about that. But at the same time, if that annoys you, it's also not fair for me to just not bring it up at all. So the red flags are just there whenever there's a certain thing that you might not like, but isn't really a criticism. And I still go with that. In fact, the only reason I'm doing this review memoirs is I want to get an electronic record of all the red flags because I'm so sloppy with my notes. And so I'm going through all of those videos and just seeing in what order I have them. I'm sure I just screwed up at some point when it came to their order. So that's why I did the red flag system, What else can I say? I think the review sucked. At the time, I was really proud of it, but looking back on it, it hasn't aged well. I had a lot of difficulty just sitting through it, and I hate all of my videos. The more recent ones are at least tolerable, but I did not enjoy watching this. The audio and video are horrid. Very bad with my enunciations. I was much worse back then. My delivery lacked energy. I had a lot of awkward pauses, even with the voiceover, which is just me reading over a script. I'm not sure how I screwed that up. It was not fun to sit through. And then the response video I ended up doing later on is even worse. The only other thing I could really add about the video itself was the Sonic Freeriders gag. Though that was actually added very late into production. In fact, I'm pretty sure I finished the most of the video, maybe even all of it, before thinking about that, and I decided I'd just throw that in there afterwards because it seemed like it would be an amusing joke, and it caught on fairly well, even though it is very lazily edited. But I don't regret it. And actually, the editing in general wasn't very good either. I made quite a few mistakes, which I shouldn't have done, but we all got to learn from somewhere. Oh yeah, the last thing I have no deleted scenes, but there was sort of an alternate scene that I scripted, but when I ended up delivering the lines, I did it more as a vlog. It was much more on the fly, so I wasn't really memorizing anything. But it's when I talk about Joe's personal conduct in response to the VGA issue, and all I say is this: although as much as I don't feel comfortable bringing this up, I have to issue red flag number 2. I have seen him get snappy at fans for saying things he doesn't like, and the ego bomb has been thrown at him from time to time. Personally, I think everyone who does any kind of review will have some ego, and unless it's taken too far, it doesn't really bother me. For some reason, though, many people seem to be bothered by any kind of ego. So it's just a warning. People who usually claim others have an ego are the ones usually with the ego. Of course, I am the exception, because I am wonderful. I think I ended up using that line later on in my Spoonie review. But yeah, I actually wrote that, and I just decided not to use the scripted version when I did that video. Anything else I could say? Oh, the VGA thing. I was in the middle of I think I had already scripted it, but I started filming and doing the voiceover when all that came out, that VGA fiasco, and that was like, oh, why did he have to do this right in the midst of my review? And then later on, I even have a more glaring example with Spoonie. You know, that kind of stuff, as I said, it doesn't really bother me. I don't really care about people's personal conduct, because I think it's really dumb to judge people based off their actions on the internet, because you have people like me who will seem really nice, but all you're seeing is that one side of me. Then other people who are almost like, I don't want to say trolls, but they're very unapologetic about themselves or their opinions, and you know, if you met them in real life, they probably are going to be much more humble, because if they say the crap that they'd say on the internet, they'd probably get punched. So that was kind of like, oh, why did he have to do that? But otherwise, I really didn't care. And then the video came out, and I did something for a few hours. I think I watched a movie. Then suddenly I come back, and I see Asalieri has posted on the video in response to something Angry Joe said. Now, I usually don't tell reviewers that I reviewed them, because it feels like I'm asking for too much attention. But if they find the video in any other way, that's fine. I'm happy if they like it. But so I'm always a little nervous when they do comment on the video, because I'm not sure if it's going to be more positive. Am I going to have to renounce my fan status if they're just a total douche about it? Luckily, that hasn't happened yet. But so I'm always a little nervous there. Then Asalieri, I've always been a big fan of, but at the same time, we have totally different opinions. I just happen to think he's really funny and sometimes pretty insightful, but I've never really made my presence known to him either. So I was like, this should be interesting, and it was. What I had missed was Angry Joe had pretty much gotten this big debate with Asalieri and a few other people, and it was just about the VGA thing. For the most part, people weren't even talking about my video, but I was surprised at how positive most of the detractors of Angry Joe were. They had no issue with my video. It was just Angry Joe in general. But then Asalieri suddenly changed his mind and became a little bit more hostile, And then it's like his fanboys suddenly saw that as an opportunity to tear me a new one. And that's pretty much what happened, especially once Asa did his review of Angry Joe. So then I started losing subscribers. People were just flaming me nonstop, which is funny because the first real troll maybe it's okay, this person wasn't really a troll, but the first real hater I had when it came to that video was an Angry Joe fan who was pissed off that I said anything remotely bad about Angry Joe whatsoever. But so that got so bad that I felt like I needed to make my own video response, and that, as I said, it's practically unwatchable. I could barely get through it. I was so bored. And there was nothing spectacular about the video itself, but I responded to Asalieri's points, and a lot of people did defend me, which was cool, but nothing long-lasting happened because me and Asalieri, when we do interact, we get along fine. There's no issue there. There was a few things that I think I would change, though, if I can go back and review him, is focus more on why people dislike him. You know, I like the fact that Joe covers everything about the game, but he doesn't go too deep to the point where it starts to where I feel like I'm being overexposed to the game. But usually I only enjoy that when it comes to stuff that I'm considering buying, which is usually newer stuff, even though older games are usually much better. Like, I love Mario and all that older stuff, but yeah, that's usually the stuff I already know about, so I rarely have any surprises when it comes to like retro game reviews. But I could see why a lot of people hated that, and of course Joe's sense of humor is very over the top, so you might hate that too. And you know, he makes a lot of mistakes, but most of those mistakes tend to be like presumptions, you know, just Joe making a mistake when it comes to the context of something, which I usually try not to make a big issue of because we all do it. In fact, Asalieri kind of did it when it came to his Reviewtopia video because he automatically presumed that Spazmaster had ripped him off, but Spazmaster wasn't even aware who he was until a few videos later. But so I think everybody makes those mistakes, but I can see if you notice a lot of those mistakes, obviously that's going to affect your enjoyment, so I could understand why people would hate that. But yeah, so that's pretty much what I'd do if I were to review Angry Joe again, is I'd at least make a bigger point as to why people do dislike him, even if I don't agree. Maybe my rating was a bit too over-enthusiastic. I'm not going to go back and redo it, though, because you know, even though I don't like the video, I'd have to redo every video probably throughout the first half of Season 3 if it was just because I didn't like it. But, you know, it was a learning experience. I learned a lot from that review, and I'm glad I went through all of that because it's really helped shape the type of reviewer I am today. So that's really all I have to say. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys later.